Hachmira, Veli Reishi, Veli Tachli, Velo Haos, Elam Yisrael, Velu Eli, Vechai Goli, Vetsur Hevli, Vetsur Hevli, L'Hachbirah, V'lireshi, V'litachli, V'lohaz, V'lohaos, Na'am Yisrael, V'hu Eli, V'chai Goli, V'tzur Hevli, V'tzur Hevli, V'etzara, V'hu Nisi, Umanos Li, Menat Kozi, B'yom Ekra. Yom Shiloh, Le'achbira, Ve'lireshi, Ve'litachli, Ve'loha'oz, Ve'loha'oz, Na'am Yisrael, Ve'hu Eli, Ve'chai Goli, Ve'tzur Kevli, Ve'tzur Kevli, Ve'etzara, Ve'hu Nisi, Umanosri, Menat Kozi, Be'yom Ekra.
Asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra la'ed nasa v'chefetzo kol azay melech shemo nikra
Hashem Allah,
Leham Shiloh, Leham Shiloh, Lehachbirah, Veli Reishi, Veli Tachli.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom from Norton Pond. Norton Pond.
Shabbat Shalom. We miss you.
Shabbat Shalom from the Skolnick family.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am so pleased to be here in our new setup in your sanctuary home. I'm just feeling you being invited into this beautiful space where we've created so much beautiful prayer, and to have the ability for you to hear Seth playing underneath me speaking is a feat of technological genius that took almost the whole afternoon to accomplish. So grateful to Len Levi and Kevin Ring, who are in the corner where all of the electronics are, now with 3 times as much electronics, so that we can share this special time of Shabbat together. I'm so inspired. I was also inspired at the very beginning of the day when Roberta Neymark offered these words that I thought I should share with everybody, because they only went out to our dear sisterhood members, but I wanted to share them on her behalf as the beginning of tonight's service. It's 6 a.m. dawn. The crescent moon and the morning star are bright in the east, and I pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, God. I've been a list maker all of my life. It began as a student with assignments and due dates. As I got older, they included goals, tasks, deadlines. My family grew, my lists grew, including the mundane and the idealistic. There were grocery lists, chore lists, self-improvement goals, even spiritual goals, lists for work, lists for home. As I have aged, I even write memory jogger lists for things I want to talk about with someone. We have lists in our Shabbat services, a list to pray for the sick, a list to pray for the dead. During the high holidays, we have a very long list of sins to be forgiven. As we live through this pandemic, we have new lists. What was good? How have you coped? What have you learned? Where have you found joy? Have you experienced illness and death? What do you fear? What do you grieve? Our hearts are big. Our hearts are tender with compassion. Now is a time that as a society we are reaching out to our Black community in many ways. I ask you to keep or add to your lists of prayer. Native, indigenous peoples, immigrants, racial minorities that live among us, the handicapped, the homeless, people of all gender identifications, our COVID frontline workers of many occupations, ourselves as Jews as we witness the rise of anti-Semitism here in the U.S. and around the world, and the teachers, parents, and children that are struggling and scared about going back to school. Tonight, as we light our candles and ignite our heart's flames, we wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And to that end, we begin our service with the words, Or Zarua Latzadik, light is sown for the righteous. Let that light that is within us produce and inspire us to righteousness.
my love around. We must hear this sacred sound. We must work till peace has come. We must love and live as one and be alive. Forza Rua Tzadi, Yisrael Lev Simcha. Forza Rua Tzadi, Yisrael Lev Simcha.
If you have your candles nearby, please join and get ready to bless them. All the stars are hidden and the moon is dark tonight. In the wide expanse of heaven, north to south, not a ray of light. Light a bright candle in my heart's shadowed tent, and through the wide expanse of heaven, the light will shine. Where there is sadness, let us offer love. Where there is fear, let us reach for hope. On this eve of Shabbat, let us bring light to one another.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'echad b'ner shel Shabbat. Before we can ask for peace, we must first welcome peace into our lives, into our hearts, and into our homes. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Haman, comes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Boreom balayla, kolel or mipnei choshech, kolel or mipnei choshech, vechoshech mipnei or. Boreom balayla, kolel or mipnei choshech, kolel or mipnei choshech, vechoshech mipnei or. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Avta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chokim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadeta, Otanu lemadeta. Alkein Adonai Eloheinu b'shofteinu, Kumenu nasiach bechukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ibim chayenu, Ve'oret yameinu, Uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir, Minenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael.
This is the prayer of our fathers and mothers. This is the prayer of our sisters and brothers. This is the prayer supporting all others. We say, this is the prayer of our fathers and mothers. This is the prayer of our sisters and brothers. This is the prayer supporting all others. We say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Everything is God, everything is one. Baruch Shem Kivod, Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Loud. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai. Again with all you have. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai. One more time. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai. This is the prayer of our fathers and mothers. This is the prayer of our sisters and brothers. This is the prayer supporting all others. We say, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha Veshinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chatavtam al mezuzot beitecha Uvisharecha lema'an tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emet. By walking, I found out where I was going. By intensely hating how to love. By loving whom and what to love. By grieving how to laugh from the belly. Out of infirmity I have built strength. Out of untruth, truth. From hypocrisy I wove directness. Almost now I know who I am. Almost I have the boldness to be that man. Another step, and I shall be where I started from.
We sing now of a sukkah, a shelter of peace, of love, and of health. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm Hashivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashivenu, Le'shalom. Ve'ha'amidenu, Shomreinu L'chaim, Ufroz aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha, Hashivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashivenu, Le'shalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. Asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת. לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ויהיו בין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני, את השמיים ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת. לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת.
To rise for tefillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotinu v'Eloteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah El Elyon Geula Livnei Bneihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechaye Metim Atah Rav Lehoshia Morid Hatal Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofech Olim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bal Gevurot Umito Melech Melech Memit Umechayeh Umech Yeshua Hametim Ata Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh Ukdoshim B'chol Yom Yahalelucha Selah Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated. On this Shabbat, grant us, God, a sense of your presence as we call upon your name. Speak your hopeful message to each yearning heart, and answer the worthy petition of each searching soul. Purify and strengthen our noble strivings, and cleanse us of all our unworthy desires. Join us together in fellowship and love. And grant us the joy that comes from enriching our lives. Bless us with hopes that uplift our daily lives, and keep our steadfast, our courage and resolve at all times. On this Shabbat, help us, O God, to be worthy of your presence as we call upon your name.
Say Adonai Eloheinu, Elohecha Yisrael, Utfilata Be'ahava Tikabel, Ozrin Lekatzor.
It doesn't have to be the blue iris. could be
weeds in a vacant lot.
Or
Or
a few small stones. Just pay attention, then patch a few words together. And don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest. But the doorway into thanks. And a silence in which another voice may speak.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon Shalom, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. B'tov b'neinecha livarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol lev u'b'chol shah Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. At this time, we think of those who are in need of God's healing presence. Please join us in Misha Berach, our prayer for healing of body and spirit. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. We think now of Evelyn Aronson, Chris Argel, Bibi Brenner, Amy Cooper, Charles Berlin, Andrew Fisher, Voldemort Donye, Dean Gabney, Roger Gluckman, Jackie Gluckman, Gabby Goldberg, Beth Barnett, Bert Horwitz, Joe Chazen, Stuart Goodman, Alicia Good, Nita Hicks, Chris Kuntz, Bernard Leader, Steve Meshnick, Frank Miller, Nancy Morgan, Dina Paul, Deborah Sanders, Julie Sherman, Bob Ward, Marlene Wexelblatt, Nancy Ash, Billy Jonas, Hannah Barlow, Ralph Huber, Stan Tenon, Bo Farson, Rachel Levy-Dayton, and Brad Kern, and more from our congregation.
Susan Barber, Diana Wyatt, David Holstein, Mort Diamond, Carol Lefton, Lee and Alan Klein, Jeffrey Weinstein, Linda Levine, Ann Walters, Carlin's dad, Gloria Cohen, Judy Mayer, Pat Cairns, Elizabeth Lewis, Amy Chamish, Shoshana Slatke, Hyona Revere, Helen Apple, and Ben Raceman.
Mishe imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And now we take a moment of silence as we hold those people in our hearts. Yehiu l'ratzon, imre fi, behegyon libi lefanecha. Yehiu l'ratzon, imre fi, behegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri begoali. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri begoali. Yehiu l'ratzon, imre fi, behegyon libi lefanecha. Yehiu l'ratzon, imre fi, behegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri begoali. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri begoali. Yehiu l'ratzon, imre fi, behegyon libi lefanecha.
This week, we begin reading from a new book in the Torah, the book of Deuteronomy. In Hebrew, Dvarim, which means words, so it's a book of words. It is essentially a long farewell speech given by Moses, retelling the story of the Israelites' journey from Egypt to now where they sit at the edge of entering the promised land. So the question is, why do we need this retelling? Especially when we discover in the first verses of this portion that when Moses tells the story, sometimes his version differs from the way that the narrative told the very same events, just chapters earlier. For example, when Moses tells the story of the lack of faith that the Israelites showed when the spies returned from their mission, his memory of those events is that he was the one on God's side who stood up against the spies who said they'd get squashed like grasshoppers. He, and not Joshua and Caleb. And he also recounts, Moses, that it was the people's lack of faith that led them to send out spies in the first place, instead of that it was a direction from God that they reconnoiter the land. The point is that the stories we tell and how we tell them create our culture, and they create our reality, in fact. Let me give you an example of a story somebody told me recently. This person was biking up Town Mountain Road, and in front of him he discovered that there was a man down, writhing in the middle of the road. His bicycle was lying sideways with the rider off of it, and a truck with some blue-collar locals were standing by the scene. So the story that this friend writes in his head in that moment is this cyclist was hit by a couple of guys in a truck driving too fast and who don't see bikers. And that could have been the end. History written right then and there. But because this person is decent and also a physician, he stopped and found out what had really happened. What had really happened was that a bear cub had run into the road. The cyclist hit the cub, fell down, dislocated his shoulder, and the truck stopped with the two men who jumped out and chased away the mama bear, who would have begun charging the cyclist who was already on the ground, further injuring him. That was the real story. We fall into this kind of storytelling all the time. This vital brain function gives our minds shortcuts to navigating our world so we don't have to assess every single detail we encounter as new information and have to go through a long process of digesting pieces of data and then making decisions about what to do in every moment of the day. And over time, as we live long enough, our brains develop a continuous narrative filled with assumptions and expectations about how the world works. And we fit new experiences into a pre-existing story. Now, some of these patterns of thought are helpful to us. You only need to touch a hot stove once until you know that to avoid getting burned, you don't want to do that. But some of our assumptions and expectations rob us of vital perspective in ways that are harmful. And I think that that's why we might have the book of Dvarim, the book of words, the book of Moses retelling all of the stories, to layer more perspective onto the narrative parts of the Torah that might get hardened and fixed. And further, as Moses does the retelling of the story, he does so with an agenda, and that is to make meaning of the events of our people's history. Moses' long speech brings clarity to the lessons he wanted his people to internalize, to shape their moral character and how to learn from their history and create a religious culture and civilization that enshrined their deepest held and divine values. In the case of the spies, it doesn't really matter who sent the spies on their mission. What was primary for Moses to convey to the people was to remember from that episode their crisis of faith, their lack of vision about what their covenant with God could be all about. Inevitably, with any storytelling or history writing, we also run the risk of selectively forgetting what we may not want to remember. And when we forget or neglect parts of our history, we lose the ability to shape our moral character by those events. And instead, we build a perspective, a narrative, and a culture that keeps those parts invisible, suppressed, or ignored. In addition to a biological pandemic, since the murder of George Floyd, our country has been collectively waking up to the racial pandemic that has ravaged Black and brown bodies in our country for centuries. Some have even named that pandemic COVID-16-19, referring to the year that the first African slaves landed in the United States. Perhaps you have begun revisiting the stories that you internalized about slavery and the systems of white privilege and supremacy that are endemic to our experience. Like others who have written extensively and eloquently about racism of late, I'm beginning to understand that a first step in this process of awakening is being willing, just being willing to integrate into our self-understanding, into my story, that being white in America means that I have either passively participated in a society set up to privilege me, or I've been complicit in advancing it. And no matter how much we might believe, that I might believe, that all beings, human beings, are equal, and don't do anything actively to be racist, have friends who are Black, or have even advocated for more equitable economic and social systems, I partake in that system that was designed to advance me while actively stymieing others. Believe me, this makes me as uncomfortable as it makes you. But I'm finding that when I begin to see what was invisible before, I can't unsee it, nor should I. I was personally moved by an image that Resmaa Menakem, a trauma therapist from Minneapolis, offered in a recent interview with Krista Tippett, while sharing that he felt that he couldn't watch the video of the murder of George Floyd. He said what he did do is, I've taken the video and I've pulled George out of the frame and only focused on Derek Chauvin and looked at his face. For that whole 8-9 minutes, just look at his face. And when you watch his face, you see such assuredness that the whole system is behind him, that nothing is going to happen, that he is doing his job, and he's not even doing it to a human being. Abraham Joshua Heschel was able to see the brokenness of the tormented and the tormentor back in 1963 when he said, "We are all pharaohs or slaves of pharaohs. It is sad to be a slave of Pharaoh. It is horrible to be a pharaoh." And Robin DiAngelo, the author of the book White Fragility, says of her poor white upbringing, "I've spent my life noticing the injustices I've experienced, but I was very far in life until I started to notice what injustices I have perpetuated and how I have benefited." These are important inquiries for us, because I suspect that as Jews, many of us have told ourselves a story about our history in America that isn't comprehensive or completely honest. And I think that sometimes we've used that story to exonerate ourselves from seeing ourselves as part of a white supremacist system, since that system often turns against us as Jews as well as against Blacks. Or maybe we've used that story to excuse ourselves from seeing Jewish success as anything other than triumphant against the odds. But it's truer to say that the odds have almost always been in our favor. We might not like it, but Jews have been part of the fabric of American history. And as such, some Jews held slaves. Some Jews participated in the Confederacy. Some Jews were on the front lines of the civil rights movement, but when it came to our schools and our shuls, many Jews chose white flight from the bad neighborhoods and schools, choosing our own futures in an alliance with all that we found and might still find distasteful. As Matt Fieldman, a fellow Landsman, recently wrote in the New York Times, The program so venerated by white American Jews, the GI Bill that sent my grandfather to college, the FHA loan for his first house in Park Rapids, Minnesota, the small business loan to start his Army-Navy surplus store, were critical to our ascension to the middle class. But look under the hood, and you realize those programs discriminated against blacks, women, and many others. Ironically, for a people obsessed with our own historical narrative, Jews have accepted the excellence of this country without recognizing or reconciling with its horrific past. Sadly, the American dream for Jews, to paraphrase Malcolm X, has been a nightmare for black people, and we can't even begin to relate. We didn't have to fight legal battles for hundreds of years just to be considered a full person, a full citizen with human rights the way African Americans did. When black people protest, the police show up in riot gear with tear gas. When Jews show up to rally or protest, the police wave and guide traffic. We aren't seeing Jews die disproportionately of COVID-19, and while we remember the singular lynching of Leo Frank, we can't forget that African Americans have been lynched in over 800 American counties, a list that continues to grow to this day. Aptly, Fieldman warns that awakening is a journey and process, not a destination. And as far as I can tell, it starts by acknowledging our story is incomplete at best and inaccurate at worst. It begins with allowing new truths to enter our narrative, even those that make us uncomfortable, and then to allow that truer story to guide our steps in shaping our moral character and creating a new reality from a place of deep conviction and values. We are fortunate in this moment that there is a veritable treasure trove of resources out there to help us on our journey of awakening. Go online and take the 21-day Racial Equity Habit Building Challenge. Or over the next few weeks, or in addition, Asheville's Jewish Community Relations Council is offering 4 Zoom panel discussions on topics related to racism, including the case for reparations and the issue of our Confederate monuments, 2 items that directly are connected to us as citizens of Asheville. Start the journey somewhere, and don't stop until you realize you're seeing things differently, and you can't unsee what has become clear. On Wednesday evening, the Jewish people will mark Tisha B'Av when we mourn the fall of the first and second temples. This Shabbat, which falls prior to that mournful day, has a special name. It's called Shabbat Chazon, the Shabbat of Vision, named for the special Haftarah we read on this saddest Sabbath of the year. In it, the prophet Isaiah is the seer, whose vision is clear as he exhorts the Israelites to open their eyes to the error of their ways. Just a week ago, our nation lost John Lewis, a visionary on our country's path to civil rights. What made him extraordinary was his refusal to stop loving this broken, beautiful world. He saw who and what we were, but he never lost sight of who and what we could still become. And that's what endeared him to so many, and what made him an effective prophet of change. I share these words from his memoir to inspire us to continue the work which starts in our own hearts. Anchor the eternity of love in your own soul and embed this planet with goodness. Lean toward the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Choose confrontation wisely. But when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers is yours to manifest in a nation, a world community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself. May his vision be ours. May our nation walk together into a new future. Amen. If you are able to rise, please join me in Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula leotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoyei aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kecho hamonam, v'anachnu kor'im u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Sometimes I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play. One day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. Day this all will change, treat people the same. Stop with the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same song, singing songs of freedom like one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and the children will play. One day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day.
Our thoughts turn to those who have departed, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and our neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives are a blessing to humanity. We mention by name these whose yahrzeits we mark on this Shabbat: Samuel Arno, John Berry, Alice Rappaport, Pauline Blumenreich, Harriet Solmson, Moretta Alexander, Lillian Gallinger, Jason Gates, Sabina Minner, Helen Posner, Alan Chase, Austin Rose Gilreath, Julianne Winner, Helen Zager, Marilyn Leader, and Freddie Cole. Are there additional names?
Santa Romeo, Jack Cowden, and Alice Slatke.
Please rise if it is your custom and join in Kaddish. Kevin, can you mute yourself? Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'b'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam alomei maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh V'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shemei d'kudesha brichu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma be'imru amen Yehei shlamma rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael be'imru amen Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu Ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru. Amen.
Ve'imru, 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 amen. Ve'imru, ve'imru, ve'imru,
Good evening and Shabbat Shalom. My name is Gaia Goldman. I am here this evening representing the Board of Trustees and have some announcements. But first, I would like to thank Rabbi for the lovely Devar this evening, and also let you know that you can spend time with her this coming Sunday and other congregants as part of the Sunday for the Spirit with Rabbi series. It is July 26th and it starts at 10 a.m. If you're interested, please email Buffy and she will send you the Zoom link. There is another group that meets on Mondays at noon for Torah study. Just as before, email Buffy and she will send you the link if you'd like to check it out. In your email today, there was information about next week's session of an online program series entitled Becoming Anti-Racist Allies, Path to Solidarity. This is the first of 4 sessions spanning topics like white supremacy and racism and anti-Semitism to monuments and the stories they tell and reparations. All programs do require previous advance registration, so let's join together to create a better future for our Black community. I hope you will participate. On Tuesday, in your email, there was information from the Tikkun Olam Committee about voter information and mail-in ballots. The easiest way to vote in our upcoming November election is by absentee ballot. In North Carolina, absentee ballots are available to all registered voters without preconditions. So check your email next Tuesday for the link and the form. And if you have questions, please contact Ted Zoller, who will be happy to help you about this and let you know about this process. We'll continue to send out this information to you in the next few months. You can also join Seth on Tuesday mornings at 8:30 for Bonei Shacharit, Builders of Morning Prayer, and again on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live for A Taste of Ma'ariv. These are 2 beautiful offerings of opening and closing your day in communal prayer. Our next fiscal year began July 1st. If you have not submitted your 2021 fair share or have an outstanding balance, we really need to hear from you. Please use ShulCloud for your commitment and to pay balances online, or call Buffy in the office if you need assistance. Look for registration links for events and programs in CBHT emails or call the office for more info. Shabbat Shalom.
Let's share Kiddush together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Grateful to Amanda Diamond Ring for this beautiful challah, and thank you again to Len and Kevin who put in extra to make tonight happen here in the sanctuary. And keep tuning in, the surprises are not over. We've got more to come, more ways that we're making the experience hopefully even warmer and even more full of holiness as we continue to learn and come into your homes in this special way. So just connecting deeply, since we can't connect physically around this challah, but to know that there is something which connects us all, invisible lines that bind us together even as we shelter in place. And with that, gratitude for this sense of community that we are each week renewing the covenant to. Please join me in the blessing motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
B'tei avon. Let's tell a story, let's share a story of love, of ahava, of chesed. Let's share it with the whole world. Olam chesed yibaneh. Olam chesed yibaneh. Yalelai, lai, lai, yalelai, lai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yalelai, lai, lai, yalelai, lai. And you must build this world from love. Yalelai, lai, lai, yalelai, lai. And if we build this world from love, yalelai, lai, lai, yalelai, lai. Then God will build this world from love. Yalelai, lai, lai, yalelai, lai. Olam chesed, olam chesed yibaneh. Yalelai, lai, lai, yalelai, lai. Olam chesed yibaneh. Yalelai, lai, lai, yalelai, lai.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.